Since its explosive announcement back in October of 2012, Star Citizen has been on one of the longest, most ambitious, and most controversial development journeys in video game history. What started as a record-breaking Kickstarter campaign for a spiritual successor to Wing Commander has evolved into a sprawling, complex project aiming to create a first-person universe MMO. Similar to my previous videos, we're going to be taking a look at the full development history from that first announcement to the current state of the game today. We'll recap the biggest accomplishments, the most significant setbacks, and the core technology that has taken over a decade to build. And before we start, if there's anything I get wrong in this video, let me know in the comment section down below, as some pieces of information have either been lost to time or have changed throughout the 13 years the game has been in development. So let's jump right into it. For those who might be new to the project, Star Citizen is an in-development, massively multiplayer online, although that title might be debated, spacefaring game. It aims to combine the elements of a first-person shooter, a deep space simulator, a trading and cargo hauling game, and a persistent open world or open universe experience. There's a lot more to the game than what I just said, but that is the overly summarized version. Players can walk from a space station bar to their ship hangar, fly out of the station, cross a star system, land on a distant planet, and explore on foot, all with no loading screens. First, let's talk about the player base, or more accurately, the funding and backer count. Unlike No Man's Sky, Star Citizen is almost entirely crowdfunded and tracked on its own website. This is, without a doubt, the project's single greatest accomplishment and its biggest source of controversy. The initial Kickstarter in 2012 raised over $2.1 million, with a total of $6.2 million raised during the initial campaign. As of today, in late 2025, the project has raised over $920 million from over 6 million backers or citizens at the time of recording, with funding set to cross the $1 billion mark sometime in the coming months. This staggering amount of money wasn't just from the initial campaign. For over a decade, the vast majority was raised by selling digital in-game ships, often as concepts or JPEGs, years before they were flyable, with prices ranging from $45 starter ships to multi-$1,000 capital ships. This pledge model fueled development but drew heavy criticism. However, in a major policy shift, CIG stated they are reducing reliance on long-term concept ship sales, prioritizing straight-to-flyable releases, though concept sales have not been fully eliminated.
We don't want to do any more concept promotions ever again. We might have to do our last one for the Battlecruiser whenever that comes and whatnot.
While seen as a step in the right direction, this change hasn't silenced critics, as the studio still sells flyable ships for real money, maintains a large backlog of previously sold concepts yet to be delivered, and many older ships in players' hangars remain outdated compared to newer releases. This total funding makes it the most well-funded crowdfunded project of any kind, ever, but it also sets an incredibly high bar for expectations, and the 13-year development time with still no 1.0 release remains the central point of criticism. Now let's go through the major phases and updates that have shaped Star Citizen into what it is today. After the 2012 announcement, the original anticipated release was 2014. This was quickly missed as the project's scope, fueled by stretch goals, expanded massively. Instead of a full game, development was released in modules. The hangar module in 2013 was the first deliverable. Backers could walk around and view their pledged ships inside of a personal hangar. Arena Commander released in 2014 and was the first playable component. It was a dogfighting module where players could fly their ships in small, instance maps against AI or other players. Alpha 2.0 released the first version of the Persistent Universe, or PU. It was a tiny slice of a single star system, Stanton, centered around the Crusader gas giant, but for the first time, players could fly multi-crew ships with friends, get out of their pilot's seat in space, engage in extravehicular activity, and fight in FPS combat on a space station. It was the first time the core no loading screens concept was proven, and it was a massive technical accomplishment. After a switch from CryEngine to a modified version of Amazon's Lumberyard, now called Star Engine, in 2016, development hit a major hurdle. The wait for Alpha 3.0 was long and frustrating for the community. When it finally dropped, Alpha 3.0 was a game changer. It introduced procedural planetary tech, where players could now fly from space and land seamlessly on the surfaces of 3 moons, Yela, Daymar, and Selin. Basic professions were added with the first versions of cargo hauling and trading being implemented, and missions like basic delivery and find the body missions, which gave players a reason to explore. While this is a huge step forward, this update was plagued by terrible performance and bugs, highlighting the immense technical challenges ahead. It also introduced the community to the game's most infamous bug, the 30K, a universal server crash error that would boot all players and become the defining symbol of the game's alpha state for years to come. The next 4 years were spent building out the rest of the Stanton system and adding core gameplay loops. Hurston and the Lorville landing zone were added in Alpha 3.3.5 in November of 2018, and it was the first full-size planet and major city players could explore, with the business district of Lorville being added a month later. Hurston's 4 moons, Aberdeen, Ariel, Ita, and Magda, were also added at this time. Arcorp, a massive city-covered planet, and the Area 18 landing zone were added in April of 2019 in Alpha 3.5, as well as the planet's 2 moons, Lyria and Walla. Microtech, a snowy tundra planet, and New Babbage, a high-tech city located on Microtech, were added in December of 2019 in Alpha 3.8. And the planet's 3 moons, Calliope, Clio, and Euterpe, being added in 3.9. There were also some new gameplay loops added with things like FPS mining, vehicle mining, and the prison and law system, the first iteration of the reputation system, and some of the first dynamic events. Looking back on it, there was a good amount of progress being made. Things were being added to the game, and it seemed to be finally taking the form of an actual game. Throughout all this time, though, CIG found itself in a major legal battle that loomed over development for years. In late 2017, Crytek, the original creators of the CryEngine that Star Citizen was built on, filed a lawsuit against CIG for breach of contract and copyright infringement. This was a massive threat to the project. Crytek's main arguments were the 2-game problem. They claimed their game license agreement was for 1 game, Star Citizen, but CIG was now developing and selling 2 separate games, Star Citizen and Squadron 42. The engine switch was another issue. Crytek alleged that by switching to Amazon's Lumberyard engine, which itself was a fork of CryEngine, CIG had violated the terms of their contract, which included an agreement to exclusively use and promote CryEngine. They also accused CIG of improperly sharing confidential CryEngine source code in their development videos. CIG fired back, calling the lawsuit meritless. They argued that Squadron 42 was never a separate game, but was always a feature and module of Star Citizen, as defined in the original agreement. This legal fight dragged on for over 2 years, creating a significant and costly distraction. While it's impossible to know the exact impact on production, it was a definite setback. Millions of dollars in backer funding and countless hours from management and legal teams were poured into this defense, resources that were diverted away from active game development. The lawsuit finally ended in February 2020 when both parties reached an out-of-court settlement. The exact terms were kept confidential, but the costly legal war was over. While CIG also faced smaller legal challenges like a ruling from the UK's Advertising Standards Authority and individual refund disputes, the Crytek lawsuit was by far the most significant threat to the project's development. Then came March 2020. Like the rest of the world, the global pandemic in 2020 forced a massive shift for Star Citizen's development. Just like studios across the globe, CIG transitioned to a full work-from-home model, and this created a strange paradox for the project. On one hand, development productivity was hit. In a letter from the chairman, Chris Roberts was transparent about the new challenges. He stated that the team was not as efficient in closing out features and content in a remote setting. Spontaneous collaboration, quick bug fixing, and problem solving became much more difficult, leading to a noticeable slowdown in patch delivery and contributing to delays for major features. On the other hand, with the entire world in lockdown, player engagement and funding exploded. People were looking for an escape, and Star Citizen's promise of a vast universe was the perfect outlet. 2020 and 2021 became record-breaking years for crowdfunding, with the project soaring past the $300 million mark, and then the $400 million mark. The number of daily active players also grew significantly, putting more stress on the servers but also bringing a massive new wave of backers into the ecosystem. And in August of 2021, as the pandemic was dying down, Stanton's final planet, Crusader, was added in Alpha 3.14, a gas giant with the city of Orison floating in the clouds. Perhaps the most significant good and bad update in the game's history, Alpha 3.18 introduced persistent entity streaming. This is the core technology that allows for true persistence. Before PES, if you dropped a box in the woods, it was gone when the server reset, which was every few hours. With PES, that box stays, a crashed ship stays, a body stays, physicalized cargo, making piracy and salvage viable. It is the foundational tech for a truly living universe. However, the launch of 3.18 was a disaster. The databases couldn't handle the load, players faced weeks of login failures, infinite loading screens, and massive inventory lag. It was a huge setback for player trust and highlighted just how difficult this technology is to implement at a large scale. After the disastrous but necessary launch of 3.18, the entirety of 2023 was spent stabilizing the game. But this wasn't just about fixing bugs. It was about finally building the gameplay loops that persistent entity streaming had unlocked. This started with small but vital additions in the Alpha 3.19, like the handheld tractor beam, which finally let players physically move the cargo that now littered crash sites and outposts. This was also when CIG doubled down on the salvage career. While 3.18 had introduced hull scraping, it wasn't until Alpha 3.22 that the full loop arrived with structural salvage. This was the hull munching feature, allowing ships like the Vulture and Reclaimer to literally eat the skeletons of other ships, which, thanks to PES now stating the verse permanently and processing them into new commodities, became possible. This entire period of stabilization and expansion culminated in Alpha 3.23 in mid-2024, which was arguably one of the biggest and more important patches Star Citizen had ever seen. It was a massive quality of life and technology update that completely changed the feel of the game. A new character creator was added with far more options, the star map was completely redesigned and was finally usable, the first implementation of wildlife was added with the Copion and Marok, some environmental improvements like volumetric clouds on all planets, and water simulation. A huge overhaul to FPS combat added more realistic recoil, new weapon attachments and leaning. The first iteration of the Vulkan graphics API support was also added, as well as image upscaling with DLSS or FSR. And most importantly, the full implementation of master modes, which brought a complete rework of the ship flight model designed to create more engaging close-range dogfights. This 3.23 patch was essential. It got the game into a stable, feature-rich state before the team flipped a switch on the next game-changing technology. And we even saw freight elevators in 3.24, although there's still some issues with those today. So after stabilizing the verse with new gameplay and a massive 3.23 patch, the stage was finally set for the next monumental leap. In December of 2024, Alpha 4.0 was released. This update finally delivered two of the longest promised technologies: static server meshing, making it so the game's universe is now run by multiple servers at once, stitched together. This is the tech that allows the universe to expand and support more players. Again, this is static server meshing, and dynamic server meshing is still in active development. But most importantly, the Pyro system was added. For the first time in 12 years, players could travel to a brand new star system, the lawless, fiery Pyro system. The release of 4.0 was far more than just a new destination. It was a fundamental overhaul of the game's foundation. The new system introduced new factions, new locations, new mission types, new fauna, personal instance hangars, and contested zones, which are high-risk, high-reward PvPvE areas, and new mission chains tied to the local outlaw factions. 4.0 was immediately followed by Alpha 4.1 in early 2025, which built on this new foundation. This patch was all about adding substance to the new framework, introducing new gameplay with the first iteration of item recovery being added. Now when you died, your equipped armor and weapons would be retained, but everything in your backpack was left on your corpse for recovery, making death less punishing but still risky. New events were added as well, like the Hunt the Polaris or A Line in Mine. We also saw new weapons like the Volt Rifle and many quality of life improvements. Oh, and Wicklow was added too.
Welcome.
By October 2025, the game progressed through Alpha 4.3, focusing heavily on mission variety, contested zones, fauna expansion, and medical gameplay refinements. However, the game still struggled with core stability issues, and the developer status page frequently reported issues left over from the PES transition. With static server meshing live and interstellar travel now a reality, Star Citizen entered a different phase of development. The question becomes less about whether the universe can expand and more about how quickly CIG can add meaningful content and systems into it. Alpha 4.4 went live on November 19th, 2025, and brought the next major expansion of the post-Pyro era, including the Nyx system and the return to Levski, along with substantial mission and hauling-focused additions. Alpha 4.5, or the Dawn of Engineering, went live last week, December 18th, 2025, and it was a major turning point. This update introduced engineering gameplay in its first playable form, requiring players, especially crews, to manage ship systems like power distribution, component maintenance, and onboard hazards. Rather than focusing on a new star system, 4.5 doubled down on depth and iteration. Mission variety increased, stability continued to improve as PES and meshing were refined under sustained real-world load, and ship gameplay started to shift toward the long-promised multi-crew reality. Dynamic server meshing remains one of the key remaining scalability milestones, the tech that determines whether Star Citizen can truly grow into the massive multiplayer vision at large player counts. But for the first time, Star Citizen feels structurally ready for that future rather than waiting on the foundations to exist. Now, here's the most important piece of context for this entire 13-year journey. This entire time, the vast majority of Cloud Imperium games' development resources and focus have not been on the persistent universe MMO we've been playing. They have been on Squadron 42. Squadron 42 is the star-studded, single-player cinematic campaign, the spiritual successor to Wing Commander, that was essentially the original focus of the Kickstarter. The MMO aspect, being Star Citizen, was arguably the stretch goal. In late 2023, at their annual CitizenCon event, CIG shocked the community by showing a feature-complete, lengthy gameplay demo from Squadron 42, announcing it was finally entering the polishing phase. We saw more gameplay from the opening sequence in 2024, but as of today, it still has no exact release date besides sometime in 2026. So every accomplishment we just listed, every planet, persistent entity streaming, and the holy grail of server meshing was achieved by a team whose primary focus was building a different game. It makes the current state of Star Citizen, flaws and all, incredibly impressive, and it also helps explain why it's taken so incredibly long. As we wrap up 2025, it's worth stepping back and looking at how Cloud Imperium games themselves framed this year, also known as the Year of Playability. In the most recent letter from the chairman by Chris Roberts, his core claim is that this was the year Star Citizen became more stable, more reliable, and more rewarding to return to, with a major internal focus on quality of life, performance, and consistency, while still keeping regular content updates rolling. Roberts also laid out CIG's two big goals for the year, which are to improve Star Citizen's stability and playability while delivering content, and to push Squadron 42 towards beta, targeting that 2026 release window. And in his words, they made great progress on both. On the Star Citizen side, he points to 2025 as the year where multiple major pieces came together, expanding the playable universe, adding new locations, and most importantly, making server meshing feel like a real foundation instead of a tech demo. He even claims that since they moved to their server mesh universe, performance has improved and recovery from crashes has become less punishing because the universe state can persist across failures. He also highlights a big increase in the cadence of updates, more major patches, more live publishes, and a steady stream of PTU builds and previews, and frames that higher pace as the reason they can iterate faster and respond to feedback sooner. And then, as the capstone moment, he calls out Alpha 4.5 as the year's closer, the patch that finally introduced engineering, adding a new layer of ship management where coordination and crew roles start to matter in a way Star Citizen has been promising for years. Now, it's also important to separate what's playable today from what's still future-facing. The letter talks about more systems planned to deepen engineering over time, including things like Maelstrom, more advanced shield gameplay, and crafting, but as of right now, crafting and base building still aren't implemented, and they remain part of the road ahead rather than part of the current sandbox. Finally, and this was a huge shocker just recently, Roberts mentioned an experimental Christmas surprise, an early VR mode arriving alongside 4.5, framed as an early prototype that still needs major refinement, but made possible by ongoing engine optimizations and the Vulkan transition. And to back up the Year of Playability claim, the letter cites record engagement, more total hours played year over year, higher concurrency, higher daily users, and fewer disconnections per player hour compared to 2024. So whether you agree with every claim in that letter or not, the takeaway is clear. CIG wants 2025 to be remembered as the year Star Citizen became meaningfully more playable, while setting up 2026 as the year they deepen systems, expand the universe, and push Squadron 42 towards release. As of the end of 2025, Star Citizen remains a testament to unprecedented ambition, staggering community support, and profound game-changing technical hurdles. It's not a comeback story like No Man's Sky because it has never launched. It is a 13-year odyssey that is still very much in progress. It has achieved technical feats that many thought to be impossible, like full-scale planets and true persistence, but it continues to be a buggy, often frustrating alpha experience that still lacks many of its core promise mechanics. Is it a game? Is it a tech demo? Is it a dream? Right now, it's a little bit of all three. Let me know your thoughts on the game. Do you play Star Citizen? Are you excited to see where the game goes in the future? Let me know in the comment section down below. It has been an honor and a privilege to see this project evolve into an actual game in the years since I first started following along, and I am looking forward to seeing what CIG has in store for us next year. If you're curious about the game and decide to pick it up for yourself or try the game out during a free fly event, make sure to check out the link down below to find any discounts on starter packs. They always have holiday packs available this time of year, and it's actually when I decided to purchase a starter pack for myself. As always, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.